Their SEO pros. The other day I did a post on the top things I wish I would have known starting out in SEO as a beginner, and the post did pretty well. I actually had a few people ask me to go into more intermediate to advanced tips about SEO. So what I did is I put together a list of as many tips as I could kind of think of. It wasn't that many, it's only about 10 tips, but they are longer format. I went through schema markup, indexation, content related issues, and some other stuff that you're going to want to know when you're dealing with larger architecture type websites, or just anything that's going to be a little bit more difficult than the stuff covered in the previous video. If you want to watch the previous video, just head to the link in the description. I'll leave a link in there so you guys can go watch the first video, and hope you guys enjoy this. So I'm just going to go right to the screen as usual, and we're going to jump into it. So if you like this type of content, make sure, that was my cat, make sure you leave a like and let me know, as well as leave a comment and say that you've subscribed, and I'll reply back. This helps me get more traction because of the YouTube algorithm whenever you comment and like. So if you can help me out with that, that'd be great. And let's go into it. I'll see you in a second. All right, so we are going to try to do this live today. Normally I've been doing these tip-based posts not live, so hopefully this goes all according to plan. So just like the last post, this post has already been doing really well on Reddit. I've gotten, let's see, let's just check it out really quick. I think a few thousand views on it already and a good amount of upvotes. So just as the last one, if you are skeptical about what you're about to find out in this article, these things that I've mentioned in written form have been upvoted pretty well on Reddit. So let's just dive into it, not waste any time, and here we go. All right, so these are all tips that I've sort of learned in the last year or so. Some of these might not make any sense to you guys, but if you, again, don't have any idea what I'm talking about and you didn't watch the first post, make sure you go to the link in the description and check it out, because a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about here, I also sort of like cover in the first part, just not as an advanced way. All right, so first thing that I see, and this, again, this list, all these 10 things that we're going to talk about are all listed by least to greatest importance. So content related issues are very, very important, but they aren't as important as some of the other things I'm going to mention lower down in this list. So either way, so usually websites that I see, that I do audits on, that have either consulted with an SEO that doesn't really know what they're doing, or they just haven't consulted with an SEO at all, they usually have some sort of content related issues. Now, the first thing that we're going to talk about around content related issues is thin content or no value pages. So what a thin content or no value page is it's basically a page that has almost no unique content. So what unique content is basically content that has no main content, as discussed in the first post. Main content is basically the content that's going to be unique to that page, not supplementary content like navigational or recent posts or stuff like that. It could be a duplicate page, meaning that there's another version of that page with the same content somewhere else on the site. Conversion pages, so like thank you pages. For instance, if you sign a form or something, you contact, and then it redirects you to that page, but that page is indexed, you want to make sure that that's no indexed. Outdated pages, so pages that just haven't been updated in a while and they're not useful anymore. PDFs, which, by the way, you can optimize PDFs, and I'm going to have to create a separate tutorial for that if you do want to know how to do that correctly. Media attachment pages, so like images being indexed as like, just one image showing up in the search results for a page. Account pages, so like people who create accounts and then they leave that information on their website, like indexable. Product tags. This really varies. So a lot of this stuff, by the way, doesn't always mean that it's bad. It just means in most cases certain things can be, affecting your SEO. So like product tags can be a good thing if they're ranking well and if people are searching for those on your website. But if you have, like, let's say tons of product tags and none of them are ranking, like let's say 100 different product tags and you only have like 3 products, that could be really, really bad. Post tags. are going to also probably be something that you don't want to use. I generally use categories over those. There are ways that you can use them correctly, but for the most part, I keep those no indexed. Dates. So depending on if you're a news site or not, dates can be bad to keep indexed because generally you're not going to want to have a date URL structure unless you're going to be talking about current events or something like that. It's better just to categorize your structure if you're not a news site. And then categories can also be done incorrectly if you're not optimizing your categories correctly, or you're just using a ton of them, or only like one. So all of these things have different factors that go with them. I'm going to talk about some of the things that you can do to fix some of these major problems here. So let's go to the next tip, which covers that. So the first thing that I would recommend, instead of just trying to figure out like an optimal structure for your website or for your, duplicate content type issues or thin content, no value type content issues, is to actually look and see what's working well for your competitors. Because again, it really depends on your industry that you're in or your niche, because it's not always true that getting rid of your tags is a good idea. If, for instance, it might be working for one of your competitors or multiple of your competitors really well. So that's why I always recommend, before you try to go out and do a bunch of SEO, try to figure out what's working well in your niche instead of just going and doing things based off general knowledge. So obviously you can also do competitor analysis on multiple platforms, which is what I recommend, but this is more of an SEO tutorial, so we're just going to stay on that. But either way, you need to at least look at your competitors, or at least what's working well for your competitors on Google in most any case. I don't know when you wouldn't want to do that. So here's how I do it for Google. So the first thing that I'm going to say is to grab a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush and plug your competition into it. I personally use Ahrefs because it seems to have a little bit better, more accurate data and a more comprehensive user interface, but that's just me. Some people like SEMrush more than Ahrefs. Now what you're going to do is you're going to see what keywords they are ranking for, and then if anything is unique to what they are doing that you aren't. So I'll show you how to do this. It's not too hard. You just go to Ahrefs. You're going to take any industry. Let's just say you want to rank locally for dentistry. This is my town, so I'm just going to put that. And you're going to take the top people that are ranking. Obviously, you don't want to use like Yelp or somebody that's just ranking based mainly off of authority, but actually based off like more on-page type stuff or local type stuff. Yelp and those other big type sites like I don't even know. There's a bunch of different sites that rank locally based off their authority. You don't want to do competitor analysis on that. You want to do it off of actual direct competition. If that makes sense, because Yelp's not going to be your direct competition. So here we go, even though it is in a sense. So here we go. We're going to put this URL in here. You can see 132 organic keywords. So what you can actually do is you can see the pages that they're ranking with these keywords, right? So if we look at Dentist Santa Barbara and then we open that, they're probably putting Dentist Santa Barbara in their title. However, if they're ranking for other things like Dental Implant Santa Barbara, and they're not directly targeting that, which they are, you can see these people are obviously doing SEO. What you can actually do is you can be better at targeting that than them based on sort of their, downfall or their vulnerability or whatever you want to call it. So the way you do it again is you try to find things that they're ranking for that might not be directly associated with what they're optimizing for. So a good example of this is if I'm trying to rank for, let's say, top gaming websites 2018, and I look and see that a bunch of people are ranking for that keyword, it's very competitive. What I could do is I could take those competitors, look at the other keywords they're ranking for, and maybe they're ranking for another keyword like, let's say, top gaming websites that do giveaways or something, right? And let's just say that has 500 searches a month. So what I can do is I can actually say, for instance, that same URL is ranking for that, but it's not optimized for this. You can actually take that sort of thing that is indirectly ranking for something else and then make your page target that based on what the competitors are doing wrong. Now, obviously, there's going to be another competitor trying to rank for this as well, or maybe there isn't. But what you're going to do is you're going to try to find all of the top things that people are ranking for and try to find the vulnerabilities based off what I usually like to do is by keyword difficulty. So what you can do is you can just sort by KD, which is your keyword difficulty score, and this will show you the lowest, the easiest things to rank for. And this I find is pretty accurate. You can't always trust it, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. So I would try to stick to, if you have a domain of, let's say, 20 or under, try to stick to keyword difficulties of that and under. So if you have a domain of like of 20 and you target keyword difficulty 19, perfect. Obviously, you can target higher if you want to, but I usually try to stay within that sort of parameter. All right. So here's what you need to look out from order of greatest to least in terms of importance for what your competitors have in terms of trying to find an opportunity to rank yourself for different keywords. So as I said before, authority like Yelp, do they have a huge amount of authority in their industry? You can base this off of DR rating in Ahrefs if you want, or you can look at social media presence and current incoming estimated traffic. But all of these authority metrics are really kind of arbitrary. You kind of have to gauge it yourself. Obviously, you know, domain authority or domain rank or whatever rating, whatever you want to use is somewhat of a metric that is helpful, but for the most part, you kind of just have to take a little bit of an estimated guess. A good way to tell, though, is just based off all of the keywords they're ranking for, and if they have brand terms associated with that as well that are ranking well. In terms of page content, so what do their current pages look like? Do they have certain elements like review boxes, testimonials, long form content, images, video lists, etc.? So you don't usually just want to try to rank based off just content, like, you know, I'm just going to write a bunch of content. I don't really care how it's laid out. You usually want to write content or put content on a website based on what's already working in the industry. So for instance, if you want to do like bed reviews and a bunch of sites have review boxes or something in there like this, like that, generally you're going to want to try to create something similar to that instead of just like doing all text-based without really any formatting that goes with what the UX is supposed to be for that type of content, which is another reason why it's so important to look at your competitors, what they're doing. Okay, keyword difficulty. So this is another sort of arbitrary metric I just talked about, but if you're using Ahrefs, it works pretty well. I'd recommend targeting difficulties around the keyword score that your domain is at. I already talked about that though. Okay, so site size. So do they have a ton of pages indexed around the niche you're targeting? So you can check this. Let's say you want to rank for Santa Barbara dentist, and you look and you see that the top person has 86 pages about dentistry. That's going to be kind of a hard thing to compete with if you only have a 10-page site, because they have a way bigger architecture. And I know some people say that siloed content doesn't matter and whatever, you know, I think it does. I've seen many people rank just because they have a huge architecture of related content, and they do really good internal linking that's passing influence of related type pages to other pages. I definitely have seen it work. If you don't believe me and you want to follow other people who tell you that it doesn't work, go ahead. But architecture, in my opinion, definitely does matter, and topical content silos definitely does matter. Okay, also, if those pages are ranking, it's even better. So if you have a bunch of content ranking for things around dentistry, it's going to help your overall trusted authority or whatever you want to call it on Google. So design, we already kind of talked about this. It just has to do with UX. Does your UX match sort of what people are looking for when they go to that type of content that you're trying to provide or rank for? All right, so number 3 is to define your competitors' vulnerabilities. So again, I hate to take this a little bit away from SEO, but one thing that you should look at is if you can find your competitors aren't performing well on other platforms like YouTube, you can build your authority from other assets into your website as well. So a good example of this is you're watching this video right now, and maybe you're going to go check out the post. Maybe you're going to go Google Chase Reiner. Like maybe I mentioned something like, hey, go check out my SEO audit template and go get that because it's really important, right? So then you go Chase Reiner SEO audit template, right? Now my brand gets associated with those keywords, and it makes it more likely for me to rank for that because I'm actually going to be getting a bunch of clicks around those things. So even if you see a bunch of opportunity on Google, but it's super competitive, you can actually go and do competitor analysis on YouTube or wherever else and see if there's certain things working for other people and try to hit on those platforms as well. Now, the reason why I do more YouTube videos than I do Google-based content is because SEO is so saturated that I have a better chance of getting more publicity and more clients and whatever else by doing YouTube type content, Reddit, social media, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, than I do just doing Google posts all the time where I have to create massive, massive content in order to rank. Now, it might be the reverse. It might be that you have more opportunity on Google than you do on YouTube. A good example of this is a gaming website that I created. It's called Siphon King, where I actually figured out that a lot of gaming type content doesn't have as much opportunity on YouTube as it does on Google, because YouTube's so much more saturated for gaming type content. So I did a couple posts on this site, and it's already getting like 1.5K organic visits per month on keywords that should be a lot more competitive than they actually are. If you were trying to rank for this on YouTube, it's very, very difficult, way more difficult than if you're trying to rank for it on Google. So I would try to, not just stick to one thing, not one platform, because you can use these other platforms to build into your SEO. So having brand searches associated with something you create and promoting it on another asset can actually get that thing to rank higher, as I said. For instance, I'm ranking on the first page for Google for SEO audit template, and most of the clicks to that page come from the keywords Chase Renner SEO audit template. As far as SEO goes, to identify what your competitors are missing out on, just go through the process mentioned in step 2 and find keywords that your competitors may be slightly ranking well for, but not directly targeting with a page. And I already talked about this. If you want to read over it again, just head to the link in the description. You can check it out. All right, so solving duplicate content problems. Now, this is one of the things that took me a really long time to learn, and it's really kind of annoying to figure out once you run into this problem, but you probably will if you end up doing a lot of SEO for people. So what this is well, let me go back to the first step where I talk about duplicate content, because we did kind of go off on a tangent on the competitor analysis. So there's a ton of ways to solve duplicate content, and this can get really confusing. As I mentioned, here are some of your options when you have duplicate content on a site, and this isn't including external sites either. So let's just talk about internal sites. So you can either delete 404 or 410 duplicate content. You can merge or combine duplicate content into a new post. You can 301 redirect duplicate content, or 302 if you want a temporary redirect. You can canonical duplicate content. You can write new content, or you can no index duplicate content. Those are mainly your top options. There might be some that I missed, but for the most part, if you can figure out how to choose the right thing, depending on the site you're working with, you're going to do pretty well. So how do you make this decision? The first thing you need to know is the different things you should do based on these different descriptions, or these different things we talked about. All right, so you should 410 duplicate content, or 404. I would recommend 410 because that's a permanent not found rather than a temporary not found. 404, I said that wrong, but it's pretty much that. 404 error means not found, and 410 means, just want to make sure I got the right definition, gone. So basically 404 means that it's Google's going to come back and look for it. 410 means no, don't come back. This is gone forever. You should 410 duplicate content if it serves no purpose to the website and nobody is using it. So for instance, if you have a bunch of those thin content, no value pages that I was talking about earlier, you should 410 that stuff because it serves no purpose to anybody. It's not ranking, like for instance, JPEG images being indexed. Just 410 those pages. You should merge or combine duplicate content into one post if the pages are similar enough to combine. So you should look at the Search Console and see if pages are getting similar clicks or cannibalizing each other for the same keywords. So the way you do that is just go over to Search Console. What's up, Craig? What's up, everybody? Sorry, I've been kind of on a tangent. Go to Search Console. Go into the property you want to look at. And what you're going to do is just press Open Report. And you're going to go by pages or by keywords. It doesn't really matter. Actually, no, you need to go by keywords. So let's just go by SEO audit template. And let's go to pages. Now, here's the thing. If I had 2 pages ranking for that keyword, I would want to try to figure out if it's because there's duplicate content. And if there is duplicate content, I would probably want to merge the page that isn't ranking as well into the page that is. Otherwise, if I want to keep that page for user experience purposes, like the page still has a purpose for users to go visit, but the content is duplicate, I don't want to write new content, then I would put a canonical tag from that one page into the new page so that Google knows that this is the page that should rank. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, by the way, in the future, just let me know. But for the most part, if these two pages with duplicate content are about different topics, like blue shirt and yellow shirt, you should do a canonical instead. The canonical should go to the higher ranking, more traffic page based on Search Console or Google Analytics data. So the hardest thing you have to grasp here is if one page, say there's two here, one of them has 60 clicks, the other one has 125, you need to figure out if you need to keep that other one because of UX purposes, or if not, 301 or canonical. If it's not a UX purpose, 301 it, and then combine the content into the one that is ranking. Unless it's completely duplicate content, then you just 301, or then you just canonical. Okay. Okay, so you should 301 redirect one page to the other if they are basically the same page and the potential redirect has no value for users or reason for being on the site, like we just talked about. You should write new content if you want both the pages to rank for different keywords, and for instance, they're ranking for the same one. You should no index content if the content still serves a purpose for UX, but isn't actually about any of the other page, and you don't need to you don't want to canonical it. Cool. Also, when you're doing no indexes, make sure you do no index, no follow, because there's really no reason why you should be no index follow. It just kind of wastes your crawl budget. That's a pro tip. All right, so open graph data optimization and growth hacking social API. So this isn't really that complicated, but it's something that I figured out, and I recommend to people who are going to be doing social media stuff. So as recommended in the previous beginner's tutorial, it's a good idea to optimize your OG data. And again, Open Graph or OG data is the data that social media platforms use to understand what your page is trying to share. So if you still don't know what I'm talking about, basically you're just going to go over to Facebook Debugger, take your website URL, plug it in here, and see what shows up. Just put chasetrainer.com. And here you can see for my homepage, I specified this graph to show, and then this title and this description to show. Now, here's the cool thing about this that you need to know. So first of all, you should create a 600 by 315 pixel image. If you don't remember that, once you get the plugin, I'm going to recommend WPSSO. They tell you that. WPSSO, I believe. Yep. So for the pages you want to share on social media, use a catchy title that you think people will click on. Use an online tool like Canva. This tool will actually let you just specify the images really quickly. So if you want to do 300 by 615, you can just drag images in here and, oh, I did it backwards, but you can just drag images in here like this and text or whatever. And now you have your new social media sharing thing for your page. So then you just download it and just put it into the WPSSO tool, and it's used just like Yoast. You just go right below Yoast on your page once you download the plugin and put it on, and you can just manipulate the data right there. So once you share your post, say for instance I were to share this on Google, like saying, hey, doing SEO consulting, whatever, I can then manipulate the data again and change the text, the title, and even the image to like a video, like a play button. You can change it to a video, you can change it to audio. And this will actually give you A/B testing on social platforms to see what brings people in the most on your posts. And it helps when you're trying to boost your posts or doing whatever you're trying to do with your website in terms of social. And it also hacks your social APIs, growth hacks, because if you share something and you have social data shown, like your social shares shown on like a sidebar, it'll actually raise those counts up a bunch anytime somebody likes or interacts. So you can keep changing this data multiple times. If you need a separate tutorial for this, just look up OG data, I think on my YouTube channel, and I have a tutorial for it. All right, so schema markup. So a lot of people are terrified of schema markup, and it's not that scary if you can kind of grasp some of these basic things. Obviously, this is a very, very short list of what you need to know when it comes to schema, but if you can just grasp these certain things, these are most of the things I use in terms of schema. there's very little time that I'm doing anything more than these. All right, so there are a ton of more of these in the schema library. If you do want to look at them, though, just go to schema.org and you can find all of the crazy, insanely huge library that schema offers. But let's just go over a common misconception. So some think schema markup, such as local business or organization markup, should be listed on every page. So if you have a local business or an organization, you should only be putting that markup on the one page that's representing that business. So organization markup should be used on the page, usually your home page, that is representing an organization that is not a local business. So I hope that makes sense. If your homepage is representing a local business, you should use local business markup for that page, but not for multiple pages. Because if you have local business markup on every page and then you have separate local business pages, you need to put separate local business markup on those separate pages and have a Google URL for each, or sorry, Google My Business for each of those page locations pointing to those separate pages. All right, so review markup. That's the difference between local business and organization. It's not too difficult. Review markup is basically when you're going to be doing a review of something. So it's not actually like you just marking up a review on your page. That's not what you want to use it for. A review markup is when you're like going to be doing a review of a product. So that's what review markup is for. It should not be confused with product or service markup, where you're putting your actual reviews for that product or service on the page and then getting aggregate ratings showing for that. So product markup is for products that you have listed on your site. Most platforms like WooCommerce or Shopify have product markup integrated with their themes, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about this unless you're building a custom site. Image object is for images on your site, and I believe you can use this markup to get more likely featured in Google Images, which is cool. WPSSO, that plugin I mentioned, actually marks up your images for you. Video object is for videos, and I also believe if you use this, you're going to be more likely to show a video in search results on the page you're marking up. To get automatic video markup, I actually am selling a plugin on my site now that I got. I acquired from somebody who was making the plugin. And if you want that, let me know, and I will leave a link in the description so you guys can go get that. It's only like $7, I think, and it'll actually mark up all of your images in your site, or all of your videos in your site with schema markup. Breadcrumb list is for showing what part of your site visitors are at. So if you do this markup correctly, Google should show your URL in search results with something like this rather than the URL just alone. So you can actually see the breadcrumbs in the URL sometimes. About and contact markup is for your about and contact pages. Marking these may not actually help you at all, but I still do it anyways because there's a schema for it and it only takes a few seconds to do. News, blog post, or article markup is for blog/info type pages. You should either use news or blog post if you are either a news site or B, creating blog posts on your site in your blog section. Article markup should be used to mark up a series of blog posts, such as your actual blog page. I didn't find that out till just recently. Event markup should be used for marking up open houses, events, concerts, and any other subtypes depending on what you can do from the schema library. You're going to have to look that up. This gives you the ability to show extra links within Google search results for whatever you're trying to mark up, which is really cool, especially if you're like a realtor or you're doing concerts or something like that. All right, so let's simplify schema implementation. So marking your pages up shouldn't be extremely hard if you follow these two different things. So first of all, we're going to talk about the WordPress plugin. It's called Markup JSON LD, structured in schema.org. This tool will help you easily implement any of the schema or most of the schema types listed in the list above. All you have to do is just fill out the information in the plugin. If you want a separate tutorial for that, let me know. If you aren't on WordPress or you are and just want to manually code everything yourself, here's how to easily implement schema manually. So the thing you're going to do is you're going to go to structured data testing tool, plug in a URL that you want to basically copy from. Let's just say you go structured data testing tool. Go chaserunner.com, which, by the way, most of my pages on my website I think are marked up pretty well. So if you want to use my pages as an example, you totally can. So organization markup, here you can see what you can do is you can just pull where this starts right here, boom, and where it ends. Copy that, do new test, code snippet, plug your information in there, and then you can start changing all of this over to your data, right? So you would just change this to other business. And then you would rerun it just to make sure it's working. And there you go. Now you can just copy all this code into the heading of your website. Now, something you need to know about this is when you do this method, you want to make sure that you're actually copying JSON LD and not just microdata, because microdata is the stuff you see on your page and it's kind of hard to format. JSON LD is what goes in your headers, and it's easy for Google to read, and it's easy for you to just inject in there. The thing you also need to know is if you're adding this stuff on your page, like for instance, a phone number or whatever else, you should also be listing it on the page that you're adding this stuff to. So if you have reviews, make sure you add those reviews to the page. You're not just putting them in your markup, because you can actually get manual penalties for that. The other thing is, if you want to be able to inject code, you don't know how to on an individual basis. For WordPress, you can actually use something called Sogo Open Scripts, which is a plugin, and it'll let you inject code into the individual pages that you want to into the header. So site architecture and URL decisions. So I don't know what it is about. Oh God, my nose is so itchy. I don't know what it is about this topic, but it's something I get more questions about than anything else. People seem to get extremely confused when it comes to creating perfect site architecture and URLs. So here's the thing. You need to first figure out if changing your architecture or URLs is worth the effort or the expense, depending on one thing. Are you or aren't you already ranking? If you already have rankings for your current structure, in most cases, you should just leave it alone. Don't break something that isn't necessarily broken. So what that means is if you want to just go and start cleaning up all your URL structure and your site architecture, and you have a bunch of stuff that's already ranking well, it's like on the first page, I would not recommend, just because somebody tells you, oh, you need a shorter URL or something, to go and change all that stuff, because you're going to be losing rankings. And for the most part, it's not super crucial for you to go and mess with that stuff unless you really, really need to, and it's really, really bad. Like it's really holding you back. Which, for the most part, unless your categorization's really off, you're gonna be okay. So if you aren't ranking, you'll want to consider a few things. Does your structure make sense to users? Is your content categorized in a way where you and your users can easily access it? Are your URLs unnecessarily long or wordy? More than 3 to 6 words per file path. When you do internal linking to other pages, are you going to be linking to a URL path that correlates with somewhat with what users are already at on your site, or is it just going to be linking to some other top level page because all the pages have been set up that way? Are your categories or siloed content over optimized in a way where users have to travel too far down the URL path to find what they're looking for? And again, at the end of the day, all of this stuff is based off what UX you should provide to a user in an optimal way. Stop thinking about what works best for SEO and start thinking about what actually makes sense to users and to how people navigate through your site. And again, I would only really mess with this stuff if your site is really bad off, people are having a terrible UX, or you're not already ranking for stuff. We got a few more, and we're going to close it up. So number 9, we got Screaming Frog plus Google Sheets with conditional formatting. So if you're doing a ton of SEO audits like I do, you need to start implementing this step if you haven't already. Once you run a Screaming Frog crawl, press Export HTML and plug your data into Google Sheets. So again, all you're doing is just opening up Screaming Frog. Once you're done with the crawl, there's a little button that says press Export. You export all your data into Google Sheets, and then you're going to set up conditional formatting based off the 20-minute video guide I created for this. What you're going to do is you're just going to set up reds and greens depending on whether or not certain conditions are met. Like, let's say a title tag's too long or too short, or meta description is too long, too short, whatever else. Maybe you're having 404 pages. And then all you're going to do, once you have all that conditional formatting set up, which, by the way, if you don't want to set up all this stuff yourself, just buy my audit template and you'll already have it set up for you. Basically, you can just copy all the stuff from Screaming Frog directly into the crawl on the roadmap, and then boom, what you'll have is all of the greens and reds, and basically you're just going to optimize the reds. So for instance, meta description is too long, you're going to optimize that. If an H1 isn't there, you're going to optimize that. So you get the point. So alternatively, that's it. So last thing we're going to talk about, and this is probably one of the most important things that I figured out doing SEO. It's why I created the software that I created called Benchmarketer, which is kind of a stupid name now that I freaking think about it for a while. But the whole point is you're going to be benchmarking and optimizing based off data. clients will keep you around a lot longer for doing this. It creates a really transparent SEO strategy that is really hard to mess up on. So let's go over it. So SEO benchmarking is one of the main reasons I attribute my rapid success lately with my SEO agency. The concept here is that you optimize based off data rather than an unknown or uncertain ranking factor. So what does that mean? A lot of people, they just go and they go, okay, well, H1's a ranking factor. I should probably add that in there, right? But if your top 10 pages have 90% bounce rates, why are you optimizing heading tags, right? So you're optimizing based off data first rather than just conceptual ranking factors. Okay, so I do this first by heading to Search Console, finding a keyword I want to rank for with a certain page, for example, my home page. I'll then click into that keyword and export the data, such as the clicks, the click-through rates, the impressions, the average positions for the given URL I'm looking for. Then I'll head over to Google Analytics and export the user metric data for that URL, such as bounce rate, average time on page, conversion rate, etc. I then set up conditional formatting, which is already in the SEO audit template if you want it. Otherwise, you can set up all the stuff yourself. And then if anything's under a certain average in the columns, I will optimize it. Here's a few examples. So if the click-through rate is below or equal to 2.9%, it's red. If the bounce rate is greater than or equal to 70%, it's red. If conversion rate is less than or equal to 3%, it's red. If clicks are under or equal to 99, it's red. And of course, these can be adjusted based on the sort of metrics you want to go for with your site. But again, what this does is it gives you the ability to go through your different pages. Like let's say SEO Audit Service, the page I want to optimize. I can plug the keyword in here based off Search Console, put in the search rate based off any keyword tool I'm using, put in the keyword difficulty, which I get from Ahrefs. And then I can just put in here clicks, impressions, click-through rates. And I haven't set up the conditional formatting on this sheet because I created a new page and I didn't. I was testing some new stuff. You can see here I put in other stuff like internal duplicate content and cognitive SEO score, other things that are not related to the main template because I was just doing testing. But for the most part, you know, if this is done correctly, like here, look, see click-through rate, I could put a note. It's under 10%, under 3%. It says need to change title to something better. Now, this is easily something I can hand off to other implementers so they can change the titles or do whatever needs to be done for the site to help it rank higher. And again, you're doing this based off average data or statistical data rather than just, you know, random data. And I'll show you what it looks like for one of our clients that's really doing well. These people had, I think, what was it? Somewhere around 3 organic visits, maybe a day if they were lucky. And they're now at like somewhere around like 1,000 to 2,000 organic visits a day. Let me just go over here, over here, over here, over here. And we'll go into here. So here you can see the reds. So if bounce rates are above certain percentage, not good, right? And then we have other things as well in here that we do that I didn't even mention, such as what Benchmarker tracks, which is content related averages. So for instance, if the images are under a certain amount, if the word count is under a certain amount, then we can just mark up all that stuff to make it really easy for us to add content and optimize, again, based on averages, not just based off, you know, content's a ranking factor. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any questions or you like videos like this, make sure you leave a like and I'll keep making more in the future. Also, let me know in the comments what type of videos you want me to make in the future and I'll see if I can make something just for you. So again, that's it for today. Until I see y'all next time, happy SEOing.